great to hear your talk at the Towers Club about the, not to defund the FBI because they will be
Right.
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 Yeah. So I know that you've often said that your story didn't start with Virginia Beach. It started
Right.
with Havana, Cuba.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about your mom's upbringing? What does communism mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, my mother fled her home country, Cuba, fleeing communism with nothing. She was literally penniless and homeless. And she lived in a society where the government decided to control every aspect of your life. And once you live in their tyranny, it takes away your ingenuity, it takes away your initiative, it takes away your ability of just living your life. And that was robbed away from her. And so from a very early age, I heard so many stories from my uncle who got arrested in the middle of the night by Castro's secret police, all because he wasn't supportive of the government. And he suffered the humiliation of a mock execution. My mother, being in school at the University of Havana, and being told she couldn't take the classes that she wanted to take because the party deemed it not necessary. And you see all these desires that you have in your life, the desire for her to worship God according to how she wanted to. She was being harassed for that, for being a member of her church. And so when you hear stories like that growing up, it reminds me there's a great quote from C.S. Lewis that said, of all the tyrannies, the worst tyrannies are the tyrannies done for your, quote, own good. And so that's the great siren call of communism. They're claiming they're doing it in the name of equality. The reality is it's oppression. And so what the Chinese Communist Party has done today is that it's oppressing so many of its own people. It's robbing them of their dignity. It's robbing them of their ability to chase. They're against it, and I think we need to recognize they're not our allies. They're our largest competitor in the world today, and they have an ideology right now that is really hurting a lot of people in China, and unfortunately, they're trying to spread their influence around the globe.
And thank you. Can you talk a little bit more about your work in investigating TikTok and the fentanyl on behalf of Virginia?
Well, on TikTok, it's amazing. It's a Chinese-owned company, and in China, TikTok's not allowed for anybody that's a minor under the age of 15. They don't allow it. That you can only use it for up to 45 minutes at a time, and it shuts off automatically in China after 10 o'clock at night. That's not the case in the United States. What we're investigating is exactly what they know. We've seen a lot of studies that have shown what a negative impact this had on our kids, and so part of my job as Attorney General is I want good corporations to thrive and hire, but if you're being a bad corporate actor, part of my job is to make sure that hold you accountable. On fentanyl, it is a weapon of mass destruction, in my opinion. We've lost over 100,000 Americans the last 12 months to fentanyl overdoses. It is a number that is growing. There was one study out of Stanford that said if we don't get control over this by the year 2029, we could lose over 1 million Americans. And so much of it's coming from China. They're shipping it. The chemicals that you make, fentanyl, they're shipping it to Mexico, and they're cooperating with the Mexican cartels. And so I banded together with about 24 other attorneys generals around the country, bipartisan, R's and D's, to ask the Biden administration to declare it a weapon of mass destruction because it is killing so many innocent Americans.
And have you heard back from the joint letter? And now that Republicans have taken over the House, do you expect that the Congress might be able to do something on that?
I had not heard back for the Biden administration. I'm not surprised. My hope is that with new leadership in Washington, they're going to look at this seriously because at the end of the day, this is chemical warfare. That's what it is. It's chemical warfare. It is the equivalent of a little over 50,000 died in the Hiroshima bombing. It's like 2 nuclear bombs have gone off in the United States the last 12 months, and it's affecting every community I go to in Virginia. People that have lost loved ones. And so it is chemical warfare, in my opinion, what they're shipping over with the cartels. And it is an evil collusion that is happening that's impacting almost every town and city in the country, and it's tragic.
And I know that one of your favorite events is the naturalization ceremonies.
Yeah.
You talked about teaching your mom the Pledge of Allegiance in the kitchen. So how's your love of America tied with your determination to fight against communism? And I think nowadays conservatives are talking about cultural Marxism, that communism seems to be now in our backyard. It's not just a remote area in China or Cuba anymore.
We're a unique nation because it doesn't matter where you came from. And that was one of my earliest memories, was teaching my mother the pledge. And that was when I first really understood she wasn't from here. I remember thinking as a child, why am I teaching her the pledge? Didn't she learn that? You know, Abraham Lincoln called America the last best hope on earth. And when he said those words, we were only 80 years young as a country. But I think Lincoln's genius is he understood what we could become. And what we have become, and hopefully we always will be, is that beacon of light, that it doesn't matter where you came from. You can come here to this country and live your life to your fullest potential. You can worship God how you want to worship God, not how the state or state maybe doesn't want you to worship God, as we know with the Chinese Communist Party. And so I think that's such a huge part of, and I think elected leaders need to realize what we have here is precious. I call it the American miracle. It is a miracle what we have here. It also means there's some other countries that want to tear us down, other countries that want to hurt us, other countries that want to influence us in a negative way. And I think what's so important is recognize for us to be that last best hope on earth, we have to protect it and we have to cherish it.
And last question from me about human rights in China. We know that you want to do some future work, and the event today is going to be off the record. But do you have anything to share about in the future what you want to do to help Virginians to be free of the CCP influence or help address the human rights situation?
You know, I have personally, and I'm not going to say which corporation, but it was brought to my attention from some dissidents that recognized, and this is horrific to say, they recognized on the shelves through slave labor they had to create. And we actually reached out to that corporation and got them connected to make them aware. I don't think they were aware that they were slave labor being used in China to make these products we buy on our shelves. We're going to be looking at, and we have been looking at, any type of influence the CCP has had on our colleges and our universities. That's obviously something that a lot of national news outlets have talked and reported on. I think it's very, very important that we be mindful of what they're trying to do if they're trying to sell any of our intellectual property. But we have such amazing research facilities in the United States. What we don't want is all that great work to be stolen or espionage to be used for the Chinese military. Because right now, as we all see, they're making a lot of noise in the South China Sea.
Do you have any comment about organ harvesting? Because that's kind of like the pinnacle of the human violation of human dignity.
Well, it's the reports I've heard from survivors is that the fact that they will take that is one of the greatest violations you can imagine, is to literally use a human being like cattle and use them to harvest their organs. It is a gross, gross violation of human rights and human dignity. And listen, a lot of American companies need to remember they're American companies. I think that's a very, very important aspect. And so if your first loyalty is to appease the Chinese Communist Party and not realize you're an American company and you need to reflect American values, then we're going to have a serious problem.
Given the fact that the CCP has been infiltrated America in the schools, in the entertainment, in the social media, this is something unimaginable during the Cold War. And imagine that the Soviet Union do the same thing to America today. So what do you think that caused this happen in America today?
Well, I think we had a misnomer that the more we would do business with China, the more we would do entertainment with China, that suddenly they would change. What we have actually seen now, we've had a couple of decades, the people that changed was us. Nobody would have imagined in the height of the Cold War that American films would self-censor what they do, not to make sure the Soviet Union's not angry at them. But that happens on a regular basis, as we know, in the entertainment business. I know individuals in the entertainment business who have shared that with me, that they literally have scripts that are pre-screened. They have individuals on their staff just to make sure it doesn't offend one of their largest markets. I think this goes back to American companies need to remember they're American companies. They need to realize that means they have to reflect American values. And if they decide they want to reflect the values of the CCP, then what's going to happen is the American people are going to hold them accountable. The marketplace is very powerful. And the one thing that I think is important is for Americans to realize this is actually happening. We're seeing it in our entertainment business. We're seeing it on our college campuses and in the education realm. And so I just think it means we have to be steel-eyed. I'm a big believer the best way to fight bad information is with good information. And I think that's a critical component. And candidly, I think it takes leadership at the national stage of leaders willing to say this isn't acceptable. If you want to join the community of nations, don't undermine the rules-based order that the United States has built and has built so much prosperity on a global scale. Don't oppress your own people. Give them a voice. And they have made this false bet with the people of China, which is you have to trust us and only us to provide prosperity. And as we know, that simply doesn't work. China right now is facing serious economic challenges. They right now are both doing a huge military buildup, but they are having such stress on their economic system. And I think at the end of the day, we also realize we're the United States of America. We're also China's largest customer. And we have a lot more influence over them than we just have to, it's a matter of will. I think this is a matter of asserting our will, and I think that's going to be an important step for our national leaders and the new Congress moving forward, is to assert our national will in this area.
I'm come from China. I know the CCP's infiltration, they have a very good strategy saying we start with the school, with the elementary school. So do you and your Youngkin administration do anything about that, at least in Virginia, to change? And how is the school reform received in Virginia and the community?
Well, a lot of what Governor Youngkin wants to do is to teach all of our history, the good and the bad, not just the bad. And I think one of the most important things is for us to be proud of ourselves. Again, there was a poll that came out not too long ago that said only 1/3 of young Americans were either somewhat or very proud to be an American.
That's true.
That is tragic. This is an exceptional country. This is that last best hope on earth that Abraham Lincoln described. It has given more second chances to more people from more faiths, more background, more races, more creeds than any country that has ever existed in the history of the world. We should celebrate that fact. The idea that 2/3 of young people aren't proud of their country breaks my heart. And the only country that's happy about that is China. They love to see an America that is forgetting who we are, our strength, and the fact that we are a unique country. And so if we ever forget who we are, that would make us no longer, I think, the world superpower, and I think China would fill the void. And so I think we need to make sure as Americans that we're teaching our next generation what it means to be an American, that we are that last best on hope on earth, that we're a unique country. We've had some faults in our history, but we are fundamentally a good, decent, and noble country. And if you don't believe me, go to naturalization ceremonies. See those 100+ people sitting there from all over the globe. They are so grateful to be here because they know we're unique. We're a special place with a special history and a special purpose in this world. And I'm proud to be an American, and it's just time for us as Americans to remember that.
Talking about natural ceremony, the things that, given the fact that this midterm, 40% Latinos, and raised from like 2018, it's only 25%. Given the fact that many Latinos coming from a socialist country,
Yeah.
do you think there's a link between because the new immigrants are beginning to waken up to
Right.
the reality? Do you see the link there?
No question. I think that the people most against socialism are the people who have actually lived under it.
Yeah.
And they don't want to see the idea. They came from countries where the government tried to control every aspect of the life. And they don't want to live in a society where they don't want to support a party that wants government to be more and more involved in every aspect of their life. I got a call from the New York Times about the inroads that the Republican Party has with Latino and Asian Americans. And my point to them was, it used to be both parties used to talk about America being exceptional.
Yes.
Both parties used to talk about the American dream. One party walked away from it. And so people that are at a naturalization ceremony that are going through what they have gone through just become and have been labeled an American, they know we're exceptional. And they know there's one party that talks about American exceptionalism and another party that constantly downgrades. This is no, America is somehow inherently a bad country. And so you can see who has the more appeal. And so that's why I think we have we've made such inroads, and we will continue. And I do think there's a link. If you come from a socialist communist country and you come to this country, you know which party talks about American exceptionalism, opportunity, entrepreneurship, and allowing you to chase your dreams. So I do think there is.
Thank you very much. That's
Thank
all
you.
of my questions.